The night Aria Bennett's life split in two, she was wiping blood off her lip in a restaurant bathroom, practicing her smile for table 7. She didn't know the man sitting there would see through every lie she'd ever told herself. She didn't know her brother would vanish before sunrise. And she definitely didn't know that saying yes to a stranger's dangerous question would drag her into a world where power wasn't just money, it was survival. This is the story of a girl who learned to stop hiding. If you stay until the end, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the bathroom made everything look sickly. Aria pressed a wet paper towel against her bottom lip, watching pink water drip into the sink. The cut wasn't deep. Marcus had been careful this time. He always was after that one ER visit when a nurse had lingered too long with her questions. Now he knew exactly how hard to hit without leaving marks that lasted more than a day or two. She pulled the towel away and examined her reflection. The bruise along her left cheekbone was the real problem. Foundation could only do so much, and she was running low on the expensive stuff that actually covered anything. The drugstore brands just smeared around like finger paint, making her look jaundiced instead of hurt. Aria dug through her purse until she found the compact. Her hand shook as she dabbed more concealer onto the purple bloom spreading beneath her eye. 2 more hours. She just had to make it 2 more hours, collect her tips, and get home before Marcus got too drunk and decided he wanted company. The bathroom door swung open, bringing with it the clatter of silverware and the low hum of expensive conversation. Another server, Rachel maybe? Aria could never remember her name, walked in, checked her lipstick in the mirror, and left without a word. That was fine. Aria preferred invisible. She smoothed down her black button-up shirt and tucked a strand of dark hair back into her bun. The Palais wasn't the kind of restaurant where you showed up looking like someone's punching bag. It catered to the type of people who spent more on one meal than Aria made in a week, the kind who expected their servers to be props in their theatrical displays of wealth. When she pushed back through the bathroom door, the dining room sprawled before her like a stage set. Crystal chandeliers threw prismed light across white tablecloths. The air smelled like truffle oil and old money. Aria kept her head down, her smile automatic, as she made her way back to her section. Table 7 had been seated while she was gone. She grabbed a water pitcher from the service station and approached, her customer service voice already sliding into place like a mask. "Good evening! Welcome to—" The words died in her throat. The man sitting alone at the table wasn't looking at his menu. He was looking at her. Not the way most men looked, that quick up-down assessment that made her feel like merchandise. This was different. His gaze was sharp, deliberate, and it caught on her face like a hook. He was maybe 40, dark hair touched with gray at the temples, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. But it wasn't his clothes that made her pulse stutter. It was the absolute stillness of him, the sense that he was reading her the way other people read newspapers. "I'll give you a moment with the menu," Aria said quickly, already turning away. "Wait." His voice wasn't loud, but it stopped her like a hand on her shoulder. She turned back, heart hammering. "What happened to your face?" The question hit her like cold water. Aria's hand flew to her cheek before she could stop herself. "Nothing. I'm fine. The lighting in here just don't." He set his menu down, folded his hands. "I asked a simple question. Who hurt you?" Nobody asked that. Nobody ever asked that. People noticed. She knew they noticed, but they looked away, uncomfortable, relieved when she gave them an excuse to stop wondering. This man didn't look away. "Sir, Aria's voice cracked. She cleared her throat, tried again. "Can I get you something to drink?" He studied her for another long moment, and she felt stripped down to her bones. Then he picked up the wine list. "Bring me your oldest Bordeaux." She fled. Her hands were still shaking when she reached the bar. She put in the wine order and leaned against the counter, pressing her palms flat against the wood to steady them. What the hell was that? Who did he think he was, asking her something like that? "You okay?" Aria looked up. James, the bartender, was watching her with concern that looked almost genuine. She nodded quickly. "Fine, just tired." "Table 7's asking for you specifically," James said, sliding an obscenely expensive bottle across the bar. "Guess you made an impression?" Aria took the wine and 2 glasses. The man hadn't asked for 2, but protocol was protocol, and walked back. Her legs felt unsteady. The man was on his phone when she approached, speaking in low, clipped Italian. He ended the call as she started to pour. "Just one glass," he said. She stopped, set the second glass aside. "Of course. What's your name?" "Arya." "Arya." He repeated it like he was testing the weight of it. "I'm Leon." She nodded, desperate to escape this conversation. "Is there anything else?" "Sit down." "I can't. I'm working. I own 20% of this restaurant." Leon gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down." Arya's stomach dropped. She glanced toward the kitchen, but nobody was watching. Slowly, she sank into the chair, perching on the edge like she might need to run. Leon took a sip of wine, his eyes never leaving her face. "How long?" "How long what?" "How long has someone been hitting you?" Arya flinched. That's not... I've seen a lot of people try to hide things, Arya. You're doing a decent job, but not good enough. He set his glass down with careful precision. "Boyfriend? Husband? Why do you care?" The question came out sharper than she'd intended. Something flickered across Leon's face. Not anger, but something colder. Calculation. "Because I don't like seeing valuable things broken." Valuable things. Like she was a vase someone had chipped. Arya stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "I need to check on my other tables." Arya. She didn't stop. She grabbed her order pad and threw herself into work, refilling water glasses, taking orders, running food. Anything to avoid table 7 and the man who looked at her like he could see the truth written across her skin. But she felt his eyes on her all night. Every time she crossed the dining room, every time she passed near his table, that steady, unnerving attention followed. He ordered food he barely touched. He nursed the same glass of wine for an hour. He was waiting. At 10:30, the restaurant started to empty. Arya was clearing table 4 when her phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen. "Marcus, where are you?" Her chest tightened. She typed back quickly. "Still at work, home by 11:30. The response came immediately. "Make it 11. Arya closed her eyes. She'd be lucky to be out of here by 11:15 if she still had side work. But telling Marcus that would just make it worse. When she opened her eyes, Leon was standing 3 feet away. She nearly dropped the stack of plates she was holding. "Jesus! You're afraid of whoever you're going home to," Leon said. Not a question. "You need to stop." Arya's voice shook. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you're running out of time." He pulled a card from his jacket pocket and held it out. "This is my number. When you need help, not if, when you call it." Arya stared at the card like it might bite her. "I don't need help." "Yes, you do." Leon stepped closer, and Arya caught the scent of expensive cologne and something else. Gunpowder, maybe, or just the general smell of power. "And when you finally admit that, I'll be the only call you make." He left the card on the table and walked away. Arya stood frozen, watching him disappear through the front doors. Then she grabbed the card and shoved it deep into her apron pocket, trying to ignore the way her hands were shaking. The rest of the shift blurred. She counted out her tips, $240, decent for a Thursday, and changed out of her work clothes in the bathroom. By the time she was walking to her car, it was 11:20. Her phone rang. "Marcus." "I'm on my way," she said immediately. "You're late." His voice was slurred. Drunk then. That could go either way. 10 minutes. I'll be there in 10 minutes. You better be. The line went dead. Arya drove fast, probably too fast, her mind still tangled around table 7 and the man who'd seen through her like glass. She didn't know what scared her more, the fact that he'd noticed or the fact that part of her had wanted to say yes when he'd offered help. She parked outside the apartment complex and sat in the car for 30 seconds, gathering herself. Then she grabbed her purse, locked the door, and climbed the stairs to the second-floor unit she shared with Marcus. The door was unlocked. That was bad. Inside, the TV was on, casting flickering blue light across the living room. Marcus was on the couch, a bottle of Jim Beam on the coffee table, mostly empty. He looked up when she walked in. "Took you long enough." "I'm sorry, we got slammed at the end of the night." He stood up, swaying slightly. "You think I'm stupid?" Arya's pulse spiked. "What? You think I don't know what you're doing?" Marcus crossed the room in 3 steps. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into the soft flesh above her elbow. Who were you with? Nobody. I was working. Bullshit. He jerked her closer, and she could smell the whiskey on his breath. You're fucking someone. I know you are. Marcus, please. The slap came fast, snapping her head to the side. Pain exploded across her already bruised cheek, bright and sharp. Arya tasted blood. Don't lie to me, Marcus hissed. And then her phone rang. They both froze. The sound cut through the apartment like a siren. Marcus released her arm and grabbed the phone from her purse before she could react. Who the hell is Ethan? He demanded, showing her the screen. Arya's stomach flipped. Her brother. It's just my brother, Marcus. Let me... Marcus answered the call and put it on speaker. Yeah? Arya? Ethan's voice crackled through, tight with panic. Arya, I need you to listen to me very carefully. She's busy, Marcus said. Who the fuck is this? Put my sister on the phone. Marcus, give me the phone, Arya said, reaching for it. He shoved her back. Your sister's fine. What do you want? There was a pause on the other end. Then Ethan spoke again, slower this time. Tell Arya I'm sorry. Tell her I tried to fix it, but I can't. Tell her to stay away from... The line went dead. Arya's blood turned to ice. Give me the phone. Marcus looked at the screen, frowned, then tossed it to her. Your brother's a dramatic little bitch. Arya caught the phone and immediately called Ethan back. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. What did he mean? He tried to fix it, Marcus asked, his anger momentarily replaced by confusion. Arya ignored him. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Where the hell are you going? My brother's in trouble. Marcus grabbed her wrist, yanking her back. Your brother's always in trouble. Stay here. Let go of me. I said stay. Arya twisted hard, breaking his grip, and ran. She heard Marcus shouting behind her, heard his footsteps on the stairs, but she was already in her car, locking the doors, starting the engine. She peeled out of the parking lot, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Ethan lived in a shitty studio apartment in the industrial district, the kind of neighborhood where people didn't ask questions and didn't call the cops. Arya made it there in 15 minutes, parking haphazardly in front of the building. The front door was ajar. Arya pushed through it and took the stairs two at a time. Ethan's apartment was on the third floor, and his door was wide open. Ethan, she called, stepping inside. The place was trashed. Furniture overturned, drawers pulled out and dumped on the floor. The TV screen smashed. It looked like someone had torn the place apart looking for something. Arya's breath came in short, shallow gasps. Ethan? No answer. She walked deeper into the apartment, her phone clutched in one hand like a weapon. The bedroom was worse. Mattress flipped, closet emptied, clothes everywhere. Blood on the wall and a smeared handprint. Arya's knees gave out. She caught herself on the doorframe, her vision swimming. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it with shaking hands. Hello? Arya Bennett? The voice was male, professional, calm. Yes. Who is this? Your brother gave us your number. He said you'd want to know he's safe. Arya's heart lurched. Where is he? What did you do to him? We didn't do anything to him. He came to us. A pause. Actually, he tried to steal from us. That's a problem. I don't understand. Ethan wouldn't... Your brother owes a lot of money to a lot of people, Miss Bennett. He thought he could solve that by taking something that didn't belong to him. Now we have him, and we'd like to have a conversation about repayment. Arya's mind raced. How much? $50,000. The number hit her like a fist. I don't have that kind of money. We know, but we also know you have other assets. The voice took on an oily quality. We'll be in touch about payment arrangements. In the meantime, your brother stays with us. Think of it as insurance. Wait. The line went dead. Arya stood alone in the ruined apartment, her brother's blood drying on the wall, and felt the last pieces of her normal life crumble. She didn't remember leaving. Didn't remember getting back in her car. The next thing she knew, she was sitting in a McDonald's parking lot at 2 a.m, staring at the card Leon Varelli had given her. When you need help, not if, when, you call it. Her finger hovered over the numbers. This was insane. She didn't know this man. Didn't know what he wanted, what he was capable of. what kind of price he'd demand for his help. For all she knew, he was worse than whatever had taken Ethan, but she also knew she was out of options. Arya dialed the number. It rang twice before a voice answered. Not Leon's, someone else. Yes? I need to speak to Leon Varelli. My name is Arya Bennett. He gave me this number. There was a pause, the sound of muffled conversation. Then a different voice came on the line. Leon's voice. I'm listening. You said I could call. Arya's voice cracked. You said when I needed help. What happened? She told him. All of it. Marcus, her brother, the apartment, the phone call, the money. The words poured out like a confession. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then Leon said, Where are you? She gave him the address. Stay there. I'm sending someone. Wait. What are you going to do? I'm going to fix this, Leon said simply. But there's a price, Arya. There's always a price. When my people arrive, you'll come with them. You'll tell me everything you know about your brother's situation. And if I decide to help you, really help you, you'll belong to me until this is resolved. Do you understand? Belong to him. The word should have terrified her. Maybe they did. But Arya was so far past terror now that it didn't even register. Yes, she whispered. Good girl. The line went dead. Arya sat in her car, shaking, and waited. 20 minutes later, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Two men got out, both wearing dark suits, both moving with the kind of controlled efficiency that marked them as professionals. Not cops. Something else. The taller one tapped on her window. Arya unlocked the door. Miss Bennett? Come with us. She followed them to the SUV on legs that didn't feel like her own. The interior was all leather and tinted windows. One of the men got in the driver's seat, the other sat beside her in the back. Nobody spoke. They drove through the city, taking streets Arya didn't recognize, heading toward the waterfront. The buildings here were different, older, industrial, repurposed warehouses converted into expensive lofts. The SUV pulled into an underground garage and stopped. This way. They took her to an elevator, which required a key card to operate. The doors opened on the top floor, revealing a sprawling penthouse apartment that looked like something out of an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor. Everything was clean lines and dark wood and brutal elegance. Leon Varelli stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. He turned when she entered. Leave us, he said to the men. They disappeared without a word. Arya stood in the middle of the room, clutching her purse, feeling small and exposed. Leon crossed the space between them with measured steps, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Tell me about your brother, he said. So she did. She told him about Ethan's gambling problem, the debts he'd racked up, the way he'd bounced from scheme to scheme trying to dig himself out. She told him about the call, the apartment, the $50,000. Leon listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he said, Your brother tried to steal from the Volkov family. Arya's blood went cold. Even she knew that name. The Volkovs ran half the city's underground, drugs, weapons, extortion. You didn't steal from them and walk away. I didn't know, she whispered. Of course you didn't. Leon moved to a bar cart and poured himself 2 fingers of scotch. The Volkovs don't negotiate. If they have your brother, he's already dead, or he will be soon. The only question is what they do with you. Arya's vision blurred. I don't have $50,000. I don't have anything. I know. Leon took a sip of his drink. But I do. She looked up sharply. Why would you help me? Because I can. Because the Volkovs are my problem as much as yours now, and because you interest me. He set the glass down. But like I said on the phone, there's a price. What price? You'll stay here, under my protection. You'll do what I tell you, when I tell you. You'll answer my questions, follow my rules, and you'll trust that I know better than you how to handle this situation. His eyes locked onto hers. In exchange, I'll get your brother back. I'll handle Marcus, and I'll make sure the Volkovs never come near you again. Arya's mind reeled. For how long? Until it's done. And then? Then we'll see. It wasn't a good deal. It wasn't even a fair deal. It was a devil's bargain, wrapped in expensive scotch and a view of the harbor. But Arya looked at Leon Varelli and saw the only lifeline she was going to get. "Okay," she said. Leon smiled. It was not a comforting expression. "Welcome to my world, Arya." The guest room Leon showed her to was bigger than the apartment she'd shared with Marcus. Arya stood in the doorway, taking in the king-sized bed with its charcoal duvet, the ensuite bathroom visible through an open door, the wall of windows that made her feel like she was floating above the city. "There are clothes in the closet," Leon said from behind her. "Probably not your size, but close enough for tonight. Someone will bring your things tomorrow." Arya turned. "My things? From Marcus's apartment. You won't be going back there." The certainty in his voice made her stomach flip. "What are you going to do about him?" "Nothing you need to worry about." Leon checked his watch. "It's almost 3. Get some sleep. We'll talk in the morning." He started to leave, then paused. "Arya, don't try to leave. There are cameras everywhere, and my security team has orders to keep you here, for your own protection." The door closed with a soft click. Arya stood alone in the expensive room and tried to process what she'd just done. She'd traded one cage for another, except this one had better furniture and a worse lock. The panic started as a flutter in her chest, then spread until she couldn't breathe properly. She locked herself in the bathroom and turned on the shower, letting the sound of water drown out the sob that tore from her throat. Then she stripped off her clothes and stood under the spray until her skin turned pink and her thoughts stopped racing. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that probably cost more than her car payment, she found a silk nightgown laid out on the bed. It fit reasonably well. She crawled under the covers and stared at the ceiling, certain she wouldn't sleep. She was wrong. Exhaustion pulled her under like a wave, and she didn't wake until sunlight was streaming through the windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came crashing back. Ethan, the phone call, Leon's offer, the look on his face when she'd said yes. Arya sat up and found her phone on the nightstand. 7 missed calls from Marcus. 12 texts, escalating from angry to threatening to almost worried. She deleted them all without reading past the first few words. There was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," Arya called, pulling the blanket up to her chest. A woman entered carrying a breakfast tray. She was maybe 60, with iron gray hair pulled into a neat bun and the kind of face that had seen everything and judged most of it. "Mr. Varelli thought you might be hungry," the woman said, setting the tray on the bed. "I'm Elena. I manage the household." "Thank you." Arya looked at the tray. Fresh fruit, toast, scrambled eggs, coffee that smelled like heaven. "Is Leon here?" "Mr. Varelli left at 6 this morning. He'll be back this afternoon." Elena's gaze swept over Arya with professional assessment. "There's a shower in your bathroom and fresh clothes in the closet. When you're ready, come to the living room. Someone will be here to speak with you." She left before Arya could ask who. Arya ate mechanically, tasting nothing. Then she showered again and opened the closet. Inside, she found exactly what Leon had promised. Clothes that weren't hers but fit well enough. Jeans, simple shirts, a sweater. All expensive, all understated. She dressed quickly and ventured out of the room. The penthouse looked different in daylight. Less intimidating, more like someone actually lived here. She found the living room and stopped short. A man sat on the leather sofa, typing on a laptop. He was younger than Leon, maybe early 30s, with sandy hair and the kind of face that belonged in a corporate boardroom. He looked up when she entered. "Arya Bennett?" He closed the laptop and stood. "I'm David Crane. I work for Mr. Varelli." "Work for him how?" "Legal counsel, primarily. But I also handle sensitive situations that require discretion." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. We need to talk about your brother." Arya sat, her pulse quickening. "Did you find him?" "We're working on it. The Volkovs are being difficult, but that's expected." David pulled out a tablet and opened a file. "I need you to tell me everything you know about Ethan's activities over the past 6 months. Who he associated with, where he went, what jobs he worked." "I don't know most of that. We weren't close." "Tell me what you do know." So she did. She talked about the last time she'd seen Ethan, 3 weeks ago, when he'd shown up at the restaurant asking to borrow money. She told David about the gambling, the loans, the way Ethan always seemed to be running from something. It wasn't much. David typed notes as she spoke, his expression neutral. When she finished, he said, "Your brother was working as a courier." Arya blinked. "A courier for who?" "Various people. Low-level stuff, mostly. Running packages, delivering messages. But 2 months ago, he started working for someone connected to the Volkov operation. That's where this gets complicated." "How complicated?" David hesitated, which scared her more than anything he could have said. Ethan was supposed to deliver a package containing $80,000 in cash. He delivered an empty bag and disappeared with the money. The Volkovs want it back, plus interest. Arya felt the blood drain from her face. 50,000 was just the starting number. The starting negotiation, yes, but Mr. Varelli has leverage the Volkovs don't know about yet. We'll handle it. How? That's not your concern. David closed the tablet. Your concern is staying here, staying quiet, and not doing anything stupid like trying to contact your brother or Marcus. Marcus doesn't have anything to do with this. Marcus has been calling your phone non-stop. He also filed a missing persons report this morning, which complicates things. David's expression hardened. Mr. Varelli is handling that too. But you need to understand something, Arya. The man you lived with, he's a problem, and problems get solved. The casual menace in those words made her skin crawl. What does that mean? It means Marcus won't bother you again. David stood. I have work to do. Elena will show you around. Don't leave the penthouse. He left, taking his laptop and his unsettling calm with him. Arya sat alone in the living room, her mind spinning. This wasn't protection. It was imprisonment. Beautiful, luxurious imprisonment, but still a cage. And Leon was the one holding the key. Elena appeared in the doorway. Would you like a tour? What Arya wanted was to run, but she followed Elena through the penthouse instead. The woman showed her the kitchen, the library, the gym, the second guest room. Every space was immaculate and impersonal, like a hotel suite designed for someone with too much money and too little warmth. Mr. Varelli values privacy, Elena said as they walked. No visitors without his permission, no deliveries, the windows don't open, and the elevator requires a code. For your safety. I'm not a prisoner, Arya said. Elena gave her a look that was almost pitying. Of course not, dear. They ended the tour back in the living room. Elena excused herself, and Arya was left alone with nothing to do but think. She tried watching TV, but couldn't focus. She tried reading a book from the library, but the words blurred together. Finally, she just sat by the windows and watched the city move below her, feeling like a ghost. Her phone rang around noon. Unknown number. She answered it without thinking. Hello? Arya, Leon's voice. How are you settling in? I'm fine, she lied. David spoke with you? Yes. Good. I need you to do something for me. There was background noise on his end, voices, traffic. Tonight, we're having dinner, you and me, 7 o'clock. Elena will help you get ready. Arya's stomach nodded. Why? Because I said so. A pause. And because we need to discuss the terms of our arrangement in more detail. The line went dead before she could respond. At 6:30, Elena appeared with a garment bag. Inside was a dress. Black, simple, elegant. The kind of thing Arya had served to women wearing but never imagined herself in. Mr. Varelli requested you wear this, Elena said. Arya took the dress, feeling like a doll being prepared for display. But she showered, dried her hair, put on the dress. It fit perfectly, which shouldn't have surprised her but did. Leon had probably had her measurements taken while she slept. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The bruise on her face had faded to a yellowish shadow, easily hidden with the makeup Elena had provided. Her hair fell in dark waves around her shoulders. She looked expensive, polished, nothing like herself. At 7 exactly, Leon walked through the front door. He'd changed from this morning's suit into something darker, more formal. His eyes swept over her with that same assessing look he'd given her at the restaurant. Beautiful, he said simply. Arya's face heated. Thank you. Come. We're eating on the terrace. She followed him through a door she hadn't noticed before, out onto a wraparound terrace that overlooked the harbor. A table had been set for two, candles already lit despite the lingering daylight. It was absurdly romantic, which made it more unsettling. Leon pulled out her chair. Arya sat, hyper-aware of every movement, every breath. Wine? He asked. I don't drink much. You do tonight. He poured her a glass of red that probably cost more than her rent. Relax, Arya. I'm not going to hurt you. You say that like it's supposed to be comforting. A small smile touched his mouth. Fair point. He sat across from her. Let me be clear then. I have no interest in harming you. What I do have is a problem, and you're part of the solution. What problem? The Volkovs have been expanding into territory that belongs to me. They're aggressive, sloppy, and they don't respect the old agreements. I've been looking for a reason to push back. Leon took a sip of wine. Your brother gave me that reason. Arya's chest tightened. You're using Ethan as an excuse to start a war. I'm using Ethan as leverage. There's a difference. Leon set his glass down. The Volkovs think they have the upper hand because they have your brother, but I have something they want more, access to their supply chain. They move product through ports I control. Without me, they lose millions. So you'll trade access for Ethan? Eventually. First, I'll make them sweat. Let them think they're winning, then I'll take everything. His eyes locked onto hers. That's how this works, Arya. You don't win by being nice. You win by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. Food arrived. Elena bringing out plates of something that looked like art. Arya picked at it, her appetite gone. You haven't asked about Marcus, Leon said. Arya looked up sharply. What about him? He's been handled. What does that mean? It means he came to your apartment this morning looking for you. He found 3 of my men instead. They explained that you were under my protection now, and that any attempt to contact or find you would be considered a hostile act. Leon cut into his steak with surgical precision. He understood. Arya's hands shook. You can't just... People don't work like that. He'll go to the police. No, he won't. Because I showed him the security footage from your building. Every time he hit you, every threat, every broken dish. I explained that if he made this difficult, that footage would end up in the hands of law enforcement, along with testimony from several witnesses who saw him assault you. Leon's voice was perfectly calm. Marcus is a coward, Arya. Cowards fold when someone bigger shows up. She didn't know what to say to that. Part of her was horrified. Part of her was relieved. And part of her, a small vicious part she didn't want to acknowledge, was glad Marcus had been scared. You're very quiet, Leon observed. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to understand the world you're in now. This isn't your restaurant job or your boyfriend's apartment. This is my territory, and here, I make the rules. He leaned back in his chair. But I'm not unreasonable. Tell me what you need. I need my brother back. Besides that, Arya thought about it. I need to know what happens to me when this is over. That depends on you. How? Leon studied her for a long moment. You have potential, Arya. I saw it the moment I looked at you. You've spent your whole life making yourself small, invisible. But you're not weak. You survived Marcus. You survived worse, probably, before him. That kind of survival instinct is valuable. Valuable how? I have businesses that require people I can trust. People who are smart, observant, and know how to keep their mouths shut. He paused. You could be one of those people, if you wanted. Arya's mind reeled. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a choice. When this is done, you can walk away. I'll give you enough money to start over somewhere new, somewhere Marcus and people like him will never find you. Or you can stay, work for me, learn how real power operates. His eyes were dark, intense. I don't make this offer lightly. Why me? Because you asked the right question. Leon's expression shifted, became almost soft. When I asked who hurt you, you didn't make excuses. You didn't protect him. You just looked scared. That told me everything I needed to know about your situation and your character. Arya's throat tightened. I don't want to be involved in anything illegal. Most of what I do is perfectly legal. The rest exists in a gray area the law hasn't caught up to yet. He smiled slightly. I'm not asking you to kill anyone, Arya. I'm asking you to be smart and pay attention. Those are things you already know how to do. She didn't answer. Couldn't. They finished dinner in silence. When Elena came to clear the plates, Leon stood and extended his hand. Walk with me. Arya took his hand before she could think better of it. His grip was warm, firm, steady. He led her to the edge of the terrace, where the city sprawled out beneath them in a carpet of lights. I grew up in a place like where you live now, Leon said quietly. My father was a drunk who beat my mother until she stopped fighting back. I was 12 when I decided I'd never be powerless again. Arya looked at him, seeing him differently now. Not just the suit and the penthouse and the controlled menace, but the person underneath. Someone who'd clawed his way out of something dark. "How did you do it?" she asked. "I learned who had power and I made myself useful to them. I worked, I watched, I waited. And when the right opportunity came, I took it." He turned to face her. "You're at that moment now, Arya. The moment where you decide if you're going to keep being a victim or become something else." "I'm not a victim." "Then prove it." The challenge hung in the air between them. Arya wanted to argue, to push back, to tell him he didn't know anything about her. But the words wouldn't come, because maybe he was right. Maybe she had been a victim so long she'd forgotten how to be anything else. "I need time," she said finally. "You have until this is resolved." Leon released her hand and stepped back. "Get some rest. Tomorrow David will need you to make a statement about Marcus. The more details you can provide, the better." He left her alone on the terrace with the city lights and her tangled thoughts. Arya stayed there until the wind picked up and her arms prickled with cold. Then she went inside, past Elena cleaning the kitchen, back to her room that felt less like a sanctuary and more like a waiting room. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to imagine a future that didn't involve running or hiding or making herself small. It was harder than it should have been. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Be ready, we're going out." Arya stared at the message until her eyes blurred. Then she set the phone aside and closed her eyes, trying to will herself into sleep. She woke to Elena knocking on her door at 8. "Mr. Varelli will be here in 30 minutes. He suggested you dress casually." Arya dragged herself out of bed and pulled on jeans and a sweater from the closet. When she emerged, Leon was waiting in the living room, wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket that made him look younger, less severe. "Where are we going?" Arya asked. "You'll see." They took the elevator down to the garage, where a different car waited, a sleek gray sedan instead of the SUV from last night. Leon opened the passenger door for her, then got behind the wheel. He drove through the city with the ease of someone who knew every street, every shortcut. They ended up in a neighborhood Arya didn't recognize, pulling up in front of a small diner that looked like it had been there since the 50s. "Breakfast," Leon said, killing the engine. Inside the diner was exactly what it looked like from the outside. Vinyl booths, checkered floors, a waitress who called everyone "un." They slid into a booth in the back, and Leon ordered coffee and eggs like this was the most normal thing in the world. "Why are we here?" Arya asked when the waitress left. "Because you needed to get out of the penthouse, and I needed to eat." Leon poured sugar into his coffee. "And because I want you to see that I'm not a monster." "I never said you were. You thought it." He met her eyes. "I can see it on your face every time I walk into a room. You're waiting for me to turn into Marcus." Arya's jaw tightened. "You're nothing like Marcus." "No, I'm worse. Marcus hit you because he was weak and angry. I've hurt people because it was necessary." Leon's expression didn't change. "But I've never hurt someone who didn't give me a reason. And you haven't given me a reason." The food arrived. Arya picked at her eggs, her stomach too twisted to eat properly. "Tell me about your brother," Leon said. "Before all this, what was he like?" The question surprised her. "Why do you care?" "Because I'm risking a lot to get him back. I'd like to know if he's worth it." Arya thought about Ethan, the way he used to make her laugh when they were kids, the way he'd protected her from their father's temper, the way everything had fallen apart after their parents died. He used to be good, smart. He wanted to be a teacher. What happened? "Our parents were killed by a drunk driver when I was 19. Ethan was 22. He had a full scholarship to college, but he dropped out to take care of me. Got a job at a warehouse, worked nights so I could finish school." Arya's throat tightened. "I think he resented me. And when I graduated, he just spiraled. Started gambling, drinking, chasing quick money." Leon listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. "I tried to help," Arya continued, "but he wouldn't let me. And then I met Marcus, and I had my own problems." She looked down at her plate. "I should have tried harder." "You were surviving. That's all anyone can do." Leon pushed his coffee aside. "Your brother made his choices. You're not responsible for them." Then why does it feel like I am? Because you're a good person. Good people always think everything is their fault. He stood and dropped cash on the table. Come on, one more stop. They drove deeper into the industrial district, past warehouses and shipping yards, until Leon pulled up in front of a building that looked abandoned. He got out, and Arya followed, her nerves jangling. Where are we? Leon punched a code into a keypad, and a heavy door swung open. Inside was nothing like the exterior suggested. Instead of decay, there was a pristine office space with computers, filing cabinets, and people working at desks. A woman looked up when they entered. She was maybe 30, dark-skinned and beautiful, with an air of dangerous competence. Boss, didn't expect you today. I'm not staying, just showing Arya around. Leon gestured to the space. This is one of my legitimate operations. Import-export logistics. Legitimate, the woman repeated with a slight smile. Mostly legitimate, Leon amended. He turned to Arya. This is Simone. She runs the day-to-day operations. Simone, this is Arya Bennett. Simone's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing. The brother situation? Yes. We're making progress. Should have a location by tonight. Arya's heart jumped. You found Ethan? We're close, Simone said. The Volkovs are keeping him in a warehouse near the river. We're confirming which one. Leon nodded. Keep me updated. Any movement from their side? They're getting nervous. Word is they know you're involved now. Simone's smile was sharp. They're trying to figure out if they should negotiate or double down. Let them wonder. Leon touched Arya's elbow. We'll get out of your way. Back in the car, Arya's mind raced. You're really going to get him back. I told you I would. Why? You still haven't explained why you're doing all this for someone you don't know. Leon pulled out into traffic, his expression thoughtful. I told you about my father. What I didn't tell you is that when I was 15, I tried to kill him. Arya went still. I waited until he passed out drunk, and I put a plastic bag over his head. Leon's voice was matter-of-fact. I held it there for almost a minute. Then my mother came home early and pulled me off him. She was furious, not at him, at me, for trying to protect her. What happened? She sent me to live with my uncle. He was the one who taught me that violence is a tool, not an emotion. That if you're going to hurt someone, it should serve a purpose. Leon glanced at her. Your situation reminded me of that night, the look in your eyes when I asked who hurt you. I recognized it. Arya didn't know what to say. This man was a stranger, dangerous and complicated, offering her things she didn't know how to accept. But for the first time since this started, she felt something other than fear. She felt seen. They drove back to the penthouse in silence. When they pulled into the garage, Leon turned off the engine but didn't move. Thank you, Arya said quietly. For what? For not treating me like I'm broken. Leon looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his expression softened. You're not broken, Arya. You're bent. There's a difference. He got out of the car, and Arya followed him back upstairs, her mind full of questions she wasn't ready to ask, and answers she wasn't ready to hear. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. Leon disappeared into his office for hours. Elena brought lunch, then dinner. Arya tried to read, tried to watch TV, tried to do anything but think about Ethan and the warehouse and what would happen when they finally found him. At 10 that night, Leon emerged from his office looking tired but satisfied. We have him, he said. Arya shot to her feet. Where? Warehouse on Pier 17. Simone's team confirmed it an hour ago. Leon poured himself a drink. We're moving tomorrow night. I want to be there. Absolutely not. He's my brother. And this is my operation. You'll stay here where it's safe. Leon's tone left no room for argument. I'll bring him back to you. That's the deal. Arya wanted to fight, to demand he let her come, to do something other than sit and wait. But she looked at Leon's face and knew it would be pointless. He'd made his decision. Fine, she said. Leon studied her like he didn't quite believe her, but he nodded. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Arya went to her room, but she didn't sleep. She lay in the dark, listening to the city sounds filtering through the windows, and tried to prepare herself for whatever came next. Because one way or another, everything was about to change. The next morning arrived with gray skies and rain that streaked the windows like tears. Arya woke before dawn, her body refusing rest despite exhaustion. She showered, dressed, and found herself pacing the living room by 6:30, unable to sit still. Leon emerged from his bedroom at 7, already dressed in dark tactical clothing she'd never seen him wear before. He looked different, harder, more dangerous. This wasn't the man who'd taken her to breakfast at a diner. This was someone else entirely. "You should eat something," he said, heading to the kitchen. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. It's going to be a long day." Arya followed him and forced down toast she couldn't taste while Leon drank coffee and checked his phone repeatedly. The silence between them felt heavy with everything unsaid. "What time are you leaving?" she finally asked. 3. "We're going in at dusk." Leon set his phone down and looked at her directly. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "That you'll stay here. No matter what you hear, no matter how long it takes. You stay in this penthouse until I come back." Arya's jaw tightened. "And if you don't come back?" "Then David will handle things. He has instructions." Leon's expression didn't change. "But I will come back. With your brother." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this man who'd walked into her life 5 days ago could actually deliver on his promises. But trust was a luxury she'd learned to live without. "Okay," she said. Leon studied her face like he was memorizing it. Then he stood, grabbed his jacket, and headed for his office without another word. The hours crawled by. Arya tried reading, watching television, anything to distract herself from the clock. Elena came and went, bringing food Arya didn't eat and offering conversation Arya couldn't focus on. By 2 o'clock, Arya's nerves were stretched so thin she felt like she might shatter. At 2:45, Leon reappeared with 3 men Arya had never seen before. They were dressed like him, dark and armed, faces set in professional calm. Leon gave her one last look across the living room. "Stay," he said simply. Then they were gone. Arya stood alone in the penthouse, listening to the silence, and felt her control start to crack. She lasted 20 minutes before she was in her room, pulling on the darkest clothes she could find from the closet. Another 10 minutes, and she'd found a spare phone in one of the kitchen drawers, probably Elena's backup, left charging on the counter. The address was easy enough to find. Pier 17. She'd waitressed at a seafood restaurant near there 2 years ago, knew the area well enough to navigate. All she had to do was get out of the building. The elevator required a code. Arya stood in front of the keypad, her heart hammering, and tried to think. She'd watched Leon use it a dozen times, but never paid attention to the numbers. But Elena used it too. And Elena was in her 60s, probably not great with remembering random combinations. Arya went to the kitchen and started searching. It took her 15 minutes to find the small notebook tucked into a drawer with the spare batteries and twist ties. Inside, in Elena's neat handwriting, were a dozen codes labeled by location: elevator, garage, building entrance, security system. Arya copied the elevator code onto her palm and pen and went back to the keypad. Her hand shook as she entered the numbers. The doors opened. She stepped inside before she could change her mind and pressed the button for the garage. The descent felt like falling. When the doors opened again, she half expected armed guards to be waiting. Instead, there was just the empty garage and a row of expensive cars. She chose the smallest one, a black coupe that looked fast and didn't require a key, just a fob she found in the center console. The engine purred to life, and Arya pulled out of the garage into the rainy afternoon, her pulse racing with adrenaline and terror. The drive to Pier 17 took 30 minutes in traffic. Arya parked 3 blocks away, tucked the car behind an abandoned shipping container, and approached on foot. The rain had picked up, soaking through her jacket, plastering her hair to her skull. She kept to the shadows, moving between buildings, until she could see the warehouse Leon had mentioned. It was massive, corrugated metal sides streaked with rust, windows long since broken or boarded over. 2 vehicles sat outside, a black SUV and a gray van. As Arya watched, the warehouse door opened and 3 figures emerged: Leon, Simone, and a 4th man Arya didn't recognize, hands zip-tied behind his back, being pushed forward at gunpoint. Not Ethan. Arya's stomach dropped. She pressed herself against the wall of the adjacent building, trying to see more, trying to understand what was happening. Where was her brother? Leon said something to the bound man, too quiet for Arya to hear. The man shook his head violently. Leon nodded to Simone, who struck the man across the face with the butt of her gun. He went down hard. Arya bit back a gasp. "Last chance," Leon's voice carried across the space now, cold and precise. "Where's the Bennett kid?" The man spat blood. Fuck you. Simone raised her gun again, but Leon stopped her with a raised hand. He crouched down to the man's level, and Arya saw the glint of something metal in his hand. A knife. I'm going to ask you one more time, Leon said, his voice dropping to something almost conversational. And depending on your answer, you either walk away from this with all your fingers, or Simone calls your wife and explains why you're going to need help buttoning your shirts from now on. The bound man's face went white. He's not here. They moved him this morning. Leon went very still. Moved him where? I don't know, I swear. Volkov made the call himself, said something about insurance. The words tumbled out fast now, desperate. That's all I know. I'm just security. They don't tell me anything. Who else was here? Simone cut in. Just me and Petrov. Petrov went with them when they moved the kid. Leon stood slowly. He looked at Simone, some silent communication passing between them. Then he turned back to the man on the ground. You're going to call Petrov. You're going to ask where they took the Bennett kid, and you're going to put him on speaker. Leon's tone allowed no argument. If you try to warn him, if you deviate from the script I give you by one word, I will make what I do to you so painful that you'll beg Simone to shoot you. Understand? The man nodded frantically. Simone cut his zip ties and handed him a phone. Leon stood over him, the knife still visible, as the man dialed with shaking hands. It rang 4 times before someone answered. Yeah? Petrov, it's Dmitri. Boss wants a status update on the transfer. There was a pause. Why is he asking you? I don't know, man. He just called, sounded pissed, said something about Varelli making moves. Dmitri's voice was steady despite the gun at his back. Where'd you end up? Another pause, longer this time. Arya held her breath. Southside Facility, the old meatpacking plant on Archer Street. Petrov's voice was suspicious now. Why? What's going on? Leon made a cutting gesture across his throat. Dmitri spoke quickly. Nothing. Just checking. Thanks, man. He hung up before Petrov could respond. Leon took the phone and crushed it under his heel. Archer Street. How many men? I don't know, Dmitri said. More than here. Maybe 6, 7. What condition is the kid in? Dmitri hesitated. Leon's hand tightened on the knife. Rough, Dmitri admitted. They worked him over pretty good. Wanted to know where he stashed the money. He wasn't talking last I saw. Arya felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Ethan. They'd hurt Ethan. Leon nodded once. Simone, secure him in the van. We're moving. As Simone zip-tied Dmitri again and hauled him toward the vehicle, Leon pulled out his phone and made a call. David, change of location, Southside Archer Street meatpacking plant. I need eyes on the building in 20 minutes and a clean exit route planned. A pause. No, just have it ready. He hung up and turned toward the warehouse, and froze. Arya realized her mistake a second too late. She'd stepped out from behind the building, drawn forward by the mention of her brother, and now stood fully visible in the rain. Leon's expression went from calm to furious in an instant. What the hell are you doing here? Arya's voice failed her. I told you to stay at the penthouse. Leon crossed the distance between them in 5 strides. I specifically told you, he's my brother. The words came out stronger than she felt. I couldn't just sit there. Yes, you could. That was the entire point. Leon grabbed her arm, not roughly but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away. Do you have any idea what you've just done? If anyone saw you, nobody saw me. You don't know that. Leon pulled her toward the SUV. Get in, now. I can help. You can get yourself killed. Leon opened the passenger door and physically guided her inside. And if that happens, everything I've done to protect you becomes worthless. He slammed the door and went to confer with Simone. Through the rain-streaked window, Arya watched them argue in tense, quiet voices. Simone kept gesturing toward Arya, her expression dark. Leon shook his head repeatedly. Finally, they seemed to reach some agreement. Simone got in the van with Dmitri. Leon climbed into the driver's seat of the SUV and started the engine without looking at Arya. They drove in silence. The anger radiating off Leon was palpable, filling the vehicle like static electricity. Arya kept her mouth shut, knowing anything she said would only make it worse. The meatpacking plant was in a neighborhood that made Pier 17 look upscale. Abandoned factories, stripped cars, broken streetlights. The plant itself was a squat brick building surrounded by chain-link fence, most of it collapsed or cut through. Leon parked 2 blocks away and killed the engine. Then he turned to face her, his expression colder than she'd ever seen it. "You're going to stay in this car. You're going to lock the doors. You're not going to move, not going to make a sound, not going to do anything except wait for me to come back. Am I clear?" "Leon, am I clear?" Arya nodded mutely. "If I'm not back in an hour, you drive to this address." He handed her a card with an address written in pen. "Ask for Marcus, not your Marcus, a different Marcus. He'll get you somewhere safe." "What if—" "There's no what if." Leon's hand moved to her face, cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness. "I will come back. But if something goes wrong, you run. You don't try to help, you don't try to save anyone. You run, and you stay alive. Promise me." "I promise." He held her gaze for another moment, then released her and got out of the car. Arya watched him disappear into the rain toward the meatpacking plant, her heart in her throat. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Arya sat in the locked car, her hands clenched in her lap, trying not to imagine every worst-case scenario her mind conjured. The rain hammered on the roof like drumbeats. At 25 minutes, she heard the first gunshot. The sound cracked through the air, sharp and unmistakable. Arya's breath caught. Then came more shots, rapid fire, and shouting. The urge to run toward the building was overwhelming, but Leon's words echoed in her head. "Promise me." She'd already broken one promise today. She couldn't break another. More gunshots, silence. Then an explosion that rocked the SUV and sent a fireball rising into the gray sky. Arya stopped breathing. The flames came from the west side of the building, black smoke pouring out of blown-out windows. She could see figures moving through the fence, but couldn't tell who was who through the rain and smoke. Then her phone, the one she'd stolen from Elena's kitchen, buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She answered with shaking hands. "Hello?" "Miss Bennett." The voice was male, accented, unfamiliar. "I think you and I need to have a conversation." "Who is this?" "My name is Alexei Volkov, and I believe you're looking for your brother." Arya's blood turned to ice. "Where is he?" "Safe. For now. But Mr. Varelli has created a rather complicated situation, and I'm afraid Ethan's safety depends on how we resolve it." Volkov's tone was almost pleasant. "I'm going to give you an address. You're going to come alone. And then we're going to make a trade." "What trade?" "You for him. Simple." Arya's mind raced. "How do I know he's alive?" There was a muffled sound, then Ethan's voice, hoarse, pained, but unmistakably him. "Arya, don't—" The phone was pulled away. "Satisfied?" Volkov asked. "Now, the address is 2847 Industrial Boulevard, Unit C. You have 30 minutes. If you're late, if you bring anyone with you, if I even suspect Varelli knows about this, your brother dies. Understand?" "Yes." "Good girl. I'll see you soon." The line went dead. Arya sat frozen, her mind spinning. She should call Leon. Should tell him what just happened. But more gunshots echoed from the meatpacking plant, and she realized with horrible clarity that Leon had his hands full. If she waited for him, if she tried to get help, Ethan would die. She had 30 minutes. Arya started the engine, her hands steadier than they had any right to be. She pulled up the GPS on the phone and entered the address Volkov had given. 22 minutes away. She drove fast, ignoring speed limits and red lights. Her entire focus narrowed to one thing: getting to her brother. The streets blurred past, the rain kept falling, and somewhere behind her, Leon was fighting a war she'd inadvertently made worse. Industrial Boulevard was exactly what it sounded like, a strip of warehouses and storage facilities that looked like they'd been forgotten by the city decades ago. Unit C was near the end, a corrugated metal building with a single rolling door and no windows. Arya parked and got out, the rain immediately soaking her. Her phone buzzed. "You're 2 minutes early, very prompt. The door's unlocked." She approached the building, every instinct screaming at her to run the other way. But she thought of Ethan, her brother who'd given up his future to take care of her, who'd spiraled trying to carry weight he was never meant to bear. She owed him this. Arya pulled the door open and stepped inside. The interior was mostly empty, just concrete floors and metal rafters. Industrial lights hung from chains, casting harsh shadows. In the center of the space stood a man in an expensive suit, flanked by two armed guards. Alexei Volkov was younger than she'd expected, maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of face that probably looked friendly when he wasn't holding people hostage. He smiled when he saw her. "Miss Bennett, thank you for being so cooperative." "Where's my brother?" Volkov gestured to the far corner. Arya's eyes followed the movement and found Ethan slumped against the wall, hands bound, face swollen and bloody. But alive. His eyes went wide when he saw her. "Arya, no," he croaked. "You shouldn't have—" "Quiet," one of the guards said, kicking him in the ribs. Arya took a step forward. "Don't touch him." Volkov held up a hand and the guard stepped back. "Such devotion. It's touching, really. Your brother is very lucky to have you." He walked in a slow circle around Arya, assessing. "Leon Virelli is causing me significant problems. He's killed 4 of my men tonight and destroyed a warehouse I use for storage, all for a junkie thief who stole from me. Ethan will pay you back. I'll pay you back, whatever it takes." "Oh, I know you will." Volkov stopped in front of her. "But not with money. Money is easy. What I need is leverage. And you, my dear, are worth far more than $80,000 to Mr. Virelli." Understanding crashed over Arya like a wave. "He doesn't care about me. We barely know each other. Don't sell yourself short. I've seen the way he moves pieces around to protect you, the way he went after Marcus Wallace, the way he's currently tearing apart my operation to find your brother." Volkov's smile widened. "Men like Virelli don't risk their empires for people they barely know." "You're wrong." "Am I?" Volkov pulled out his phone and made a call. Someone answered immediately. "It's done. Bring him in." The rolling door Arya had entered through opened again with a metallic screech. 2 more guards entered, dragging someone between them. Leon. He was alive but clearly hurt, blood running from a cut above his eye, his left arm hanging at an odd angle. When he saw Arya, his expression went from pain to rage to something that looked almost like grief. "You stupid, stupid girl," he said quietly. Volkov laughed. "See? Concern, affection, all very profitable emotions." He addressed Leon directly now. "Here's how this works. You're going to withdraw from my territory. You're going to return the product you seized from my warehouse, and you're going to pay me $200,000 for the trouble you've caused. And if I don't?" Leon's voice was steady despite the blood. "Then I kill the girl. Then I kill her brother. And then I come after everyone you care about until there's nothing left." Volkov pulled a gun from his jacket and pressed it to Arya's temple. The metal was cold against her skin. "So, do we have a deal?" Leon looked at Arya, and she saw a calculation happening behind his eyes. He was weighing options, measuring costs, deciding what she was worth. "Let them go," Leon said. "Both of them. You keep me." "No," Arya breathed. "That's not the deal," Volkov said. "Then here's a new deal." Leon's voice hardened. "You let them walk out of here right now. In exchange, I won't have David release the files he's currently holding about your organization. Bank accounts, supplier lists, every dirty cop and politician on your payroll. All of it goes to the FBI in 30 minutes unless I call him off." Volkov's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Call David Crane right now and ask him." Leon rattled off a phone number. "Or shoot the girl and find out the hard way." The warehouse went silent except for the rain on the roof. Volkov's gun stayed pressed to Arya's head, but she could see doubt creeping into his expression. "Even if you have files," Volkov said slowly, "releasing them burns you too. Half the people on my payroll are on yours. I've already moved my money, changed my network. I've been preparing for this war since the day your people crossed into my territory." Leon's eyes were chips of ice. "You haven't. So when the FBI comes knocking, I'll be fine. You'll be in prison." Volkov stared at him for a long moment. Then he lowered the gun from Arya's head. "You're insane." "I'm motivated." Leon gestured to Arya and Ethan. "Let them go. Now." Volkov hesitated, then nodded to his guards. "Cut the brother loose." One of the guards moved to Ethan and sliced through his zip ties. Ethan stumbled forward, nearly falling before Arya caught him. "Arya," Leon said quietly, "take your brother. Walk out the door. Don't stop. Don't look back." What about you? I'll be fine. Go. I'm not leaving you. That's an order. Leon's voice cracked like a whip. You promised me you'd run if things went wrong. Things are wrong. Run. Arya looked at him, at the blood on his face and the steel in his eyes, and felt something break inside her chest. But Ethan was leaning heavily against her, barely conscious, and she could feel the weight of his dependence. She backed toward the door, supporting her brother, her eyes locked on Leon's. I'll come back for you, she said. Leon smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I know. Arya pulled Ethan out into the rain and ran. They made it half a block before Ethan collapsed. Arya caught him, but his weight pulled them both down to the wet pavement. Rain poured over them as she tried to haul him back up. Come on, she gasped. Ethan, please, we have to move. Can't. His voice was barely a whisper. Just leave me. Shut up. Arya got her shoulder under his arm and lifted with strength she didn't know she had. You don't get to give up now. She half dragged, half carried him to the SUV. Getting him into the passenger seat took 3 tries, her muscles screaming. By the time she collapsed behind the wheel, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the keys. The address Leon had given her was still in her pocket. She pulled out the card, now soggy and smeared, and tried to read it. The numbers were barely legible, but she managed to make out enough to punch it into the GPS. 12 minutes away. Arya drove like someone possessed, running lights, taking corners too fast, her eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror for headlights that never appeared. Ethan drifted in and out of consciousness beside her, his breathing shallow and ragged. Stay with me, she kept saying. Just stay with me. The address led to a nondescript building in a commercial district, the kind of place that could be anything from a dentist's office to a front for organized crime. Arya parked haphazardly and ran to the entrance, pounding on the glass door. A man appeared from the shadows inside, big, bald, covered in scars. He looked at Arya through the glass with flat, assessing eyes. I'm looking for Marcus, Arya called. Leon Varelli sent me. The man unlocked the door. Where's Leon? Volkov has him, at a warehouse on Industrial Boulevard. He told me to come here, he said. Arya's voice broke. My brother's in the car. He needs help. Marcus, this Marcus, moved fast for someone his size. He pushed past Arya and went straight to the SUV, assessing Ethan through the window. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. It's me. We have a situation. A pause. The girl showed up without the boss. Says Volkov grabbed him. Yeah, she's got the brother. Another pause. Understood. He hung up and looked at Arya. Come inside. Both of you. Marcus carried Ethan like he weighed nothing, bringing him into a back room that looked like a medical facility. There was a gurney, medical equipment, the smell of disinfectant. A woman was already there, older, efficient-looking, with the bearing of someone who'd seen worse. Lay him down, she ordered. Marcus deposited Ethan on the gurney. The woman immediately started cutting away his blood-soaked shirt, checking vitals, moving with practiced precision. Arya hovered uselessly until Marcus pulled her aside. Doc will take care of him. You need to tell me exactly what happened. So Arya did. She told him about the meatpacking plant, about Volkov's call, about the trade she'd made without thinking. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each sentence. You walked into a trap, he said when she finished. I know that now. And Leon traded himself to get you out. Yes. Marcus rubbed his face. Christ, David's going to lose his mind. Can we get him back? Arya demanded. Can we? We don't do rescue missions, not how this works. Marcus checked his phone. But Leon's smart. If he let himself get taken, he has a plan. What if he doesn't? What if Volkov kills him? Then Volkov starts a war he can't win. Marcus looked at her directly. You care about him. It wasn't a question, but Arya answered anyway. I barely know him. That's not what I asked. Arya's throat tightened. She thought about Leon standing in that warehouse, bleeding and surrounded, trading his freedom for hers without hesitation. She thought about the way he'd looked at her in the car before going in, like he was memorizing her face in case he didn't come back. Yes, she whispered. I care about him. Marcus nodded like this confirmed something. Then you're going to do exactly what I tell you. Because if Leon's plan works, he's going to need you alive and safe when he gets out. And if it doesn't work, he stopped. Let's just make sure it works. The next 6 hours were the longest of Arya's life. She sat in the waiting room while the doctor worked on Ethan, Marcus making phone calls in the corner in tense, quiet voices. No one would tell her anything. No one knew anything. At some point, Elena arrived. How she'd found this place, Arya had no idea. The older woman took one look at Arya's wet, blood-stained clothes and disappeared, returning with dry things that actually fit. Arya changed mechanically, her mind elsewhere. "Mr. Varelli will be fine," Elena said with absolute certainty. "He always is." "You don't know that. I've worked for that man for 15 years. I've seen him survive things that should have killed him." Elena's expression softened slightly. He didn't get where he is by being careless. But he'd been careless with her. He'd let emotion override logic, and now he was paying the price. Arya couldn't shake the image of his face when he'd seen her in that warehouse. The flash of genuine fear before the mask came back down. Around midnight, the doctor emerged. "Your brother's stable. Broken ribs, concussion, internal bruising, but nothing life-threatening. He'll need rest and pain management, but he'll recover." Relief hit Arya so hard her knees buckled. "Can I see him?" "He's sedated. Better to let him sleep." The doctor looked at Marcus. "Any word on—" "Not yet." Arya sank into a chair, exhaustion finally overwhelming adrenaline. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, someone was shaking her shoulder. "Arya, wake up!" She jerked awake to find David Crane standing over her, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. His suit was rumpled, his tie missing, dark circles under his eyes. "What time is it?" she asked groggily. 4 a.m. We need to talk." He led her to a small office and closed the door. Then he turned to face her, and his expression was colder than the rain outside. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Arya straightened. "I saved my brother. You compromised an operation that took months to set up. You walked into an obvious trap, and you forced Leon to make a choice that could cost him everything." David's voice was controlled, but anger simmered underneath. "He told you to stay at the penthouse. He told me a lot of things, and you ignored all of them." David slammed his hand on the desk. "You're a liability. Leon should have left you in that restaurant bleeding and scared instead of—" He stopped, took a breath. "But he didn't, because for some reason he sees something in you worth protecting. So now we have to clean up this mess." "Have you heard from him?" Arya asked quietly. David's anger deflated slightly. "No, nothing since he called to confirm the files were ready." He sat heavily in the chair behind the desk. "But that's not unusual. Volkov will keep him isolated until he's sure Leon wasn't bluffing about the FBI." "Was he bluffing?" "Partially. The files exist, but they're not as complete as he made them sound. Enough to cause problems for Volkov, but not enough to destroy him entirely." David rubbed his eyes. It was a gamble. One Leon wouldn't have taken if you hadn't been there. The guilt settled in Arya's stomach like a stone. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this." David looked at her. "But you can help. If you're willing." "Anything. Volkov knows Leon cares about you. That makes you valuable, which means he's going to want to keep tabs on you even after this is resolved." David pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. "We need to use that." Inside the folder were surveillance photos, buildings, people Arya didn't recognize, detailed notes in the margins. She looked up, confused. "I don't understand. Leon and I have been building a case against the Volkov organization for 18 months. We have most of what we need, but there's one piece missing, proof that Alexei Volkov personally ordered the murder of a federal witness last year." David tapped one of the photos. "We think the evidence is in Volkov's personal office, but it's in a building we can't access without triggering every alarm in the city." "What does this have to do with me?" "Volkov's going to reach out to you, probably in the next few days. He'll want to establish a connection, make sure you know he's watching. When he does, you're going to accept." David's expression was intense. "You're going to let him think you're afraid of him, that you'll cooperate to keep your brother safe, and eventually he's going to invite you somewhere. When he does, you're going to wear a wire and get us what we need." Arya stared at him. "You want me to spy on the man who just kidnapped my brother? I want you to help put him in prison. There's a difference. And if he finds out, if he realizes what I'm doing, then Leon will kill him before he can touch you." David said it like a fact. "But it won't come to that. Volkov's arrogant. He thinks women are decoration. He won't see you as a threat. Arya thought about Volkov's smile, the casual way he'd pressed a gun to her head, the way he'd used her like a chess piece. She thought about Leon bleeding in that warehouse, trading himself because she'd been too stubborn to listen. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." David nodded. "Good. We'll start prep tomorrow. For now, get some rest." But rest was impossible. Arya went back to the waiting room and sat with her head in her hands, her mind racing. She'd spent her whole life trying to stay invisible, and now she was being asked to walk into the lion's den wearing a wire. It was insane. It was also the only way to fix what she'd broken. Around 6, Marcus appeared with coffee and a grim expression. "We got a message." Arya shot to her feet. "From Leon?" "From Volkov. He's releasing Leon this morning. Wants us to pick him up at Pier 17 in 2 hours. "That's where this started," Arya said. "I know." Marcus handed her the coffee. "Could be a trap, could be legitimate. Either way, we're going. You're staying here." "Like hell I am." He traded himself for me. The least I can do is be there when he comes back." She met Marcus's eyes. "I'm not asking permission." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed. "David's going to kill me. Fine. But you stay in the car and you do exactly what I say. Deal?" "Deal." They left Elena with Ethan and drove to Pier 17 as the sun started to rise, burning through the rain clouds. The same warehouse where Leon had questioned Dmitri stood empty now. No vehicles, no signs of life. Marcus parked 100 yards away and killed the engine. "We wait," he said. 30 minutes passed. Then a black sedan pulled up to the warehouse. 2 men got out, opened the back door, and pulled someone out. Leon. He was on his feet but moving stiffly, clearly in pain. The men said something to him, then got back in the car and drove away. Marcus was out of the vehicle before Arya could blink, gun drawn, approaching Leon with careful steps. Arya followed despite Marcus's earlier orders, her heart in her throat. Leon looked worse than she'd imagined. His left arm was in a makeshift sling, his face was a patchwork of bruises, and he moved like every step hurt, but he was alive. His eyes found Arya immediately. "I told you to stay away." "I don't take orders well." Arya's voice shook. "You're hurt." "I've had worse." Leon let Marcus support him as they walked back to the car. "Your brother?" "Alive, recovering." Arya hovered uselessly. "Leon, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't—" "Not now." Leon's tone wasn't angry, just tired. "We'll talk later. Right now I need a doctor, and about 12 hours of sleep." They drove back to Marcus's building in silence. The doctor who'd treated Ethan examined Leon, set his dislocated shoulder with a sickening pop that made Arya wince, and prescribed rest and painkillers. Leon took the pills without complaint and let Marcus help him to a private room. Arya stood in the doorway, unsure if she should follow or give him space. Leon made the decision for her. "Come in, close the door." She did, her pulse quickening. Leon sat on the edge of the bed, looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. "David told you about his plan," Leon said. Not a question. "Yes." "And you agreed?" "Yes." Leon was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You should walk away, Arya. Take your brother, take the money I promised you, and disappear. Start over somewhere Volkov will never find you." "Is that what you want?" "What I want doesn't matter." "It matters to me." Arya stepped closer. "You traded yourself for me. You could have let Volkov shoot me and walked away clean, but you didn't. That was strategy, not sentiment. Bullshit." The word came out harder than she intended. "I saw your face when you realized I was in that warehouse. That wasn't strategy." Leon looked away. "You're right. It wasn't. Which is exactly why you should leave, because I make stupid decisions when you're involved, and stupid decisions get people killed." "Then teach me not to be a liability." Arya knelt in front of him so he had to look at her. "You said I had potential, that I could be valuable. Was that a lie?" "No." "Then let me prove it. Let me help David take down Volkov. Let me be part of this world instead of just something you protect." She held his gaze. "I'm tired of being saved, Leon. I want to save myself." Something shifted in Leon's expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. He reached out with his good hand and touched her face, his thumb brushing over the faded bruise on her cheek. "You're not ready for what this requires," he said softly. "Then make me ready." Leon studied her face like he was looking for something. Whatever he found there must have satisfied him because he nodded slowly. "Okay, but we do this my way. You follow every order, you trust my judgment, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" "Understood." "And Arya?" His hand dropped to her shoulder. "If Volkov even suspects what you're doing, I won't wait for him to make a move. I'll burn his entire organization to the ground." It should have sounded like an exaggeration. It didn't. Over the next week, Arya's life became a crash course in controlled deception. David taught her how to wear a wire without it showing, how to steer conversations toward useful topics, how to read body language and microexpressions. Marcus taught her basic self-defense and what to do if things went wrong. Leon, still recovering, watched from the sidelines and corrected their methods with the precision of someone who'd done this before. Ethan recovered slowly in a room down the hall. Arya visited him daily, but the distance between them felt wider than it ever had. He was grateful, apologetic, broken, in ways that had nothing to do with his physical injuries. They didn't talk about what happened. There was too much blame to go around. On the 8th day, Volkov made contact. Arya was at the penthouse. She'd moved back in after Leon returned, and nobody questioned it, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She looked at Leon, who nodded. She answered. "Miss Bennett, I hope you're well." Volkov's voice made her skin crawl. She forced her tone to stay neutral. "What do you want?" "To apologize for the unpleasantness of our last meeting. Things got rather heated." He sounded genuinely regretful. "I'd like to make amends. Perhaps dinner? Tomorrow night. I have a table reserved at Monarch. Do you know it?" Monarch was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Arya had served there for exactly one shift before deciding the clientele wasn't worth the tips. "Why would I have dinner with you?" "Because your brother is still in debt to me, and I'm willing to forgive that debt in exchange for good faith." A pause. "And because I think you and I have much to discuss about Mr. Varelli." Arya looked at Leon. He made a circular motion with his hand. "Keep him talking." "What about Leon? He's a dangerous man, Miss Bennett. I worry for your safety in his company. Perhaps over dinner we can discuss alternative arrangements." Volkov's tone was oily, false. No obligations, just conversation. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, but she thought about David's plan, about the evidence they needed, about Leon sitting across from her with bruises still healing from trading his freedom for hers. "Okay," she said. "Tomorrow night." "What time?" 8 o'clock. I'll send a car for you." The line went dead. Leon immediately pulled out his phone and called David. He made contact. "Dinner tomorrow at Monarch. We need to move up the timeline." Arya's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs and tried to slow her breathing. Leon ended the call and moved to sit beside her. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid." Arya looked at him. "And because you need this. The evidence, the leverage, whatever it takes to end this. Not at your expense." "My choice," Arya said firmly. "You don't get to make it for me." Leon searched her face, then nodded slowly. "All right, but I'm going to be in that restaurant. You won't see me, but I'll be there. And the second I think you're in danger, you'll burn everything down. I know." Arya almost smiled. "You've mentioned." The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation. David fitted her with a wire so thin it was invisible under clothing, tested and retested the audio quality. Marcus made her practice exit strategies until she could navigate Monarch's layout in her sleep. Leon gave her a crash course in reading Volkov, his tells, his weaknesses, his pressure points. "He's arrogant," Leon said. "He'll assume you're scared, that you'll cooperate out of fear for your brother. Use that. Play weak. Let him think he's in control. And if he asks about you, tell him whatever you think he wants to hear, that I'm controlling, that you're afraid of me. Feed his ego." Leon's expression was hard. "Nothing you say can hurt me. Remember that." By the time 8 o'clock came, Arya felt like she'd aged a decade. She wore the dress Leon had picked out. Elegant, but understated. Nothing that would draw attention. The wire was taped between her breasts, invisible under the fabric. She looked in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back. The car Volkov sent was predictably ostentatious. Arya sat in the back seat and tried not to think about how this could go wrong as they drove to Monarch. The restaurant was exactly as she remembered, all crystal and candlelight, the kind of place where the menu didn't list prices because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Volkov was already seated at a private table in the back, dressed in an impeccable suit, smiling like they were old friends. "Miss Bennett, you look lovely." Arya forced herself to smile. "Thank you for the invitation." As she sat, her eyes swept the restaurant. She didn't see Leon, but she felt him watching. It was enough. Volkov ordered wine, made small talk about the food, acted like this was a perfectly normal dinner between perfectly normal people. Arya played along, answering questions, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, all while the wire recorded everything. Finally, after the main course, Volkov leaned back and studied her. "I want to be honest with you, Arya. May I call you Arya?" "Of course. Leon Varelli is not a good man. I'm sure he's told you stories, painted himself as some kind of protector, but the truth is, he uses people. And when they're no longer useful, he discards them." Volkov's expression was almost sympathetic. "I would hate to see that happen to you." "What are you suggesting?" "That you have options. Your brother's debt is forgiven. I can arrange for you to leave the city, start fresh somewhere Leon can't find you. All I ask in return is information." "What kind of information?" "His movements, his plans, the people he meets with." Volkov smiled. "Small things. Nothing that would put you at risk." Arya's heart hammered. This was it. The moment where she either committed or ran. She thought about Leon's bruised face, about Ethan beaten and broken, about Marcus bleeding out on that apartment floor. "And if I say no?" she asked quietly. Volkov's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went cold. "Then I can't guarantee your safety. Or your brother's. Leon has enemies, Arya. Many enemies. And sometimes those enemies make mistakes about who they're targeting." It was a threat wrapped in velvet. Arya felt the wire against her skin and prayed it was picking up every word. "I need time to think about it," she said. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Volkov signaled for the check. "But not too long. These offers have expiration dates." The dinner ended with false pleasantries and Volkov promising to be in touch. Arya walked out of the restaurant on legs that felt like water, climbed back into the waiting car, and didn't breathe properly until they were 3 blocks away. Her phone buzzed. A text from Leon. "Well done. Come home." Home. The words settled in her chest like warmth. Back at the penthouse, she found Leon, David, and Marcus waiting. David was already playing back the recording, his expression intense. "This is good," he said. "Very good. We have him on attempted witness tampering at minimum. And the threat at the end, that's usable." "Is it enough?" Arya asked. "Not yet, but it's a start." David looked at her with something approaching respect. "You did well tonight, better than I expected." Leon crossed the room and pulled her into a careful embrace, mindful of his still healing injuries. "You're done now. No more risks. David said we need more." "I don't care what David said. You've given us enough to work with." Leon pulled back to look at her face. "The rest is on us." But Arya had spent too many years being protected, being handled, being kept safe in cages built by other people. She'd tasted what it felt like to be useful, to be strong, to matter. "No," she said firmly. "I'm seeing this through." And she did. Over the next 3 weeks, Arya met with Volkov 4 more times. Each meeting was carefully orchestrated. David choosing locations with good audio coverage, Marcus mapping escape routes, Leon watching from somewhere she could never see but always felt. Each time, she wore the wire. Each time, she played the role of a frightened woman looking for a way out. And each time, Volkov revealed a little more. He talked about shipments coming through the port, mentioned names of politicians and judges on his payroll, complained about competitors who'd mysteriously disappeared. He was careful, never quite confessing to anything directly. But the pieces accumulated. David built his case 1 recorded conversation at a time. But it was the 5th meeting that changed everything. Volkov called her on a Tuesday morning. "I have something to show you, something that will help you understand the kind of man you're really dealing with." "What do you mean?" Come to my office tonight, 9 o'clock, come alone. There was an edge to his voice she hadn't heard before. And Arya? Don't tell Leon, this is between you and me. The line went dead. Arya stared at her phone, her heart racing. This was it, the opportunity David had been waiting for. Volkov's personal office, where the evidence about the murdered witness was supposedly kept. She found Leon in his study, reviewing shipping manifests. He looked up when she entered, and his expression immediately shifted to concern. What happened? She told him about Volkov's call. Leon's face went dark. It's a trap. Maybe? Or maybe he's finally letting his guard down. Arya sat across from him. Either way, it's our best chance to get into his office. No. Leon, I said no. He stood, pacing. This is different from a restaurant or a public park. His office is his territory, complete control. If something goes wrong, we can't get to you in time. Then we'll make sure nothing goes wrong. That's not how this works. Leon stopped pacing and faced her. You're talking about walking into the office of a man who put a gun to your head 3 weeks ago. A man who's killed dozens of people for less than what you're doing. And you want to do it alone. I won't be alone. I'll have the wire. I'll have you listening. Arya kept her voice steady. And I'll have a plan. Leon looked at her for a long moment. You've changed. You changed me. I didn't mean to. I know. Arya stood and moved closer to him. But you did. You showed me what it looks like to have power instead of just surviving someone else's. And now I need to see this through. Leon's jaw tightened. He turned away, hands gripping the edge of his desk. If I lose you because I let you do this, I'll never forgive myself. The confession hung in the air between them. Arya felt her breath catch. You won't lose me, she said quietly. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll fight like hell to come back. She touched his shoulder. Trust me, Leon, the way I trusted you when I called your number that night. He turned to face her, and the expression on his face was raw in a way she'd never seen. That's not fair. I know. Leon closed his eyes, then nodded once. Okay, but we do this right. Full tactical support, multiple exit strategies, and you follow David's script exactly. No improvisation. Agreed. The next 12 hours were intense preparation. David rewrote his questions 3 times, drilling Arya until she could steer conversations in her sleep. Marcus showed her where to position herself in Volkov's office for best audio coverage, how to unlock a window if she needed to run, what to do if Volkov tried to search her. Leon didn't say much, but his presence was constant, hovering at the edges of every planning session like a shadow. At 8:30 that night, Arya stood in the penthouse bathroom checking her reflection. The wire was in place, invisible under her black sweater. She'd pulled her hair back, worn minimal makeup. She looked focused, capable, scared. Leon appeared in the doorway. 30 minutes? I know. He stepped into the bathroom and closed the door behind him. They stood in the small space, close enough to touch, but not touching. I need you to understand something, Leon said. If Volkov tries to hurt you, if he even reaches for you the wrong way, I'm coming in. I don't care about the evidence or the case or anything David needs. Your safety matters more. That's not very strategic. I don't care. His hand came up to cup her face. You matter more than strategy. Arya's throat tightened. She leaned into his touch, letting herself have this moment of vulnerability before she had to be strong again. When this is over, she said, we need to talk about what this is. You and me. I know. I mean really talk, not just... Leon kissed her. It was desperate and careful at the same time, his good hand sliding into her hair while the other rested against her waist. Arya kissed him back, pouring every complicated feeling she didn't have words for into the pressure of her mouth against his. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Leon rested his forehead against hers. Come back to me, he said. I will. The car Volkov sent arrived at 8:50. Arya climbed in, alone, and watched the city pass by through tinted windows. Her earpiece was so small it was invisible, but she felt its weight. Leon's voice came through, barely a whisper. I'm here. Marcus and David are in position. You're not alone. She didn't respond, couldn't without giving away the earpiece, but she felt steadier knowing he was listening. Volkov's office was in a high-rise downtown, the kind of building that screamed wealth and power. Arya took the elevator to the 20th floor, her heart hammering. The doors opened to reveal a reception area decorated in chrome and leather. Empty this late at night. Volkov was waiting in his private office, standing by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. He turned when she entered, smiling. Arya, thank you for coming. You said you had something to show me. Straight to business. I appreciate that. Volkov gestured to a chair. Please, sit. Arya sat, positioning herself exactly where Marcus had instructed, close enough to the window for a potential escape, angled so the wire would pick up Volkov's voice clearly. Volkov pulled a folder from his desk and slid it across to her. This is what Leon doesn't want you to know. Arya opened it. Inside were photographs, grainy surveillance shots of Leon meeting with various people, documents with his signature, financial records. I don't understand, she said, playing confused. Leon Varelli has been working with federal prosecutors for 6 months. He's building a case against me, using you as bait. Volkov's expression was almost sympathetic. Everything that's happened, your brother's capture, the trade, those dinners we've had, all of it was theater. He's using you to get to me. Arya's mind raced. Was this true? She looked at the documents again, trying to determine if they were real or fabricated. Some of the signatures looked legitimate. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because I think you deserve to know who you're really dealing with. Leon isn't protecting you, Arya. He's weaponizing you. Volkov leaned forward. But I can offer you something real. Safety. Freedom. A life where you're not just a pawn in someone else's war. In her ear, Leon's voice was tight. It's bullshit. Half those documents are fake. Don't believe him. But was it all fake? Arya thought about how quickly Leon had inserted himself into her life. How perfectly everything had aligned to put her in this position. Had she been played from the beginning? I need proof, she said. Real proof, not just documents that could be forged. Volkov smiled. I thought you might say that. He stood and walked to a wall panel that Arya hadn't noticed before. He pressed something, and the panel slid open to reveal a safe. Her pulse quickened. This was it. The safe where David believed the murder evidence was kept. Volkov worked the combination and pulled out a USB drive. Everything is on here. Leon's communications with the FBI, his real financial records. And something else. Something that will show you exactly what kind of man he is. He held out the drive. Arya took it, her fingers closing around the small device. What's on it? Security footage from the night your brother was taken. Volkov's eyes were cold now. Leon knew where Ethan was the entire time. He let my people beat him for 2 days before making his move. He wanted your brother broken so you'd be dependent, so you'd trust him completely. The words hit like a physical blow. Arya felt sick. You're lying. Watch the footage. Then decide. Volkov returned to his desk. But understand this. If you choose to stay with Leon after seeing what he really is, you're choosing to be complicit in everything he does. And I won't make this offer again. In her ear, Leon's voice was urgent. Get out. Now. Something's wrong. But Arya couldn't move. She stared at the USB drive in her hand, her mind spinning with doubt and fear and the terrible possibility that she'd trusted the wrong person. I need to go, she said, standing abruptly. Of course. Take your time reviewing the evidence. Volkov walked her to the door. But Arya? Be careful who you trust. Sometimes the devil we know is worse than the one we don't. Arya left the office on shaking legs. She made it to the elevator, pressed the button for the ground floor, and leaned against the wall as the car descended. The USB drive felt like a lead weight in her pocket. Leon was waiting outside the building, standing beside a car with Marcus and David. His face was tight with worry. What happened? He demanded as soon as she was close enough. Arya pulled out the USB drive. He gave me this. Said it's proof you've been using me, that you let Ethan get beaten to make me dependent on you. Leon's expression went carefully blank. And you believe him? I don't know what to believe. Arya's voice cracked. Was any of this real, Leon? Or have I just traded one manipulator for another? Give me the drive. No, not until you tell me the truth. Arya stepped back. Did you know where Ethan was before you went to that warehouse? The silence stretched too long. Answer me, Arya demanded. Yes. Leon's voice was flat. I knew where he was 6 hours before we moved. I waited because the timing wasn't right. The admission was like a knife to the chest. You let him suffer. I made a strategic decision. Moving too soon would have gotten him killed. And you. Leon stepped closer. I did what was necessary to ensure the best possible outcome. You let my brother get beaten so you could control me. No. I let your brother face the consequences of his own choices while I figured out how to save him without getting everyone killed. Leon's eyes were hard. There's a difference. Arya laughed bitterly. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like Volkov was right. You're just better at hiding what you are. Then watch the footage on that drive. See for yourself. Leon held out his hand. But do it here, with me, so you can ask questions when you realize he's lying to you. Arya looked at his outstretched hand, then at the USB drive, then at David and Marcus watching silently from the car. Every instinct told her to run, but she'd been running her whole life and it had gotten her nowhere. She handed Leon the drive. They went back to the penthouse in tense silence. David set up a laptop while Marcus checked the drive for malware. It came back clean. Leon plugged it in and opened the files. There were dozens of documents, financial records, communications, surveillance photos. David went through them methodically, his expression growing darker. Some of this is real, he said finally. The financial records are accurate. Leon does have an arrangement with federal prosecutors. Arya's stomach dropped. So Volkov was telling the truth. Partially. David pulled up another file. But look at the timeline. Leon's cooperation with the FBI started 8 months ago, 4 months before you ever met him. This isn't about you, Arya. It's about taking down the Volkov organization. But he used me to do it. Yes, Leon said quietly. I did. The admission hung in the air. Arya looked at him, this man who'd saved her and manipulated her in equal measure, and felt something break inside her chest. The security footage, she said. Show me. David clicked on a video file. The screen filled with grainy black and white footage of a warehouse interior. Arya recognized it, the place where Ethan had been held initially. The timestamp showed 2 days before Leon had raided the location. In the footage, Ethan was tied to a chair, bloodied but alive. 2 men stood over him, asking questions. Ethan shook his head. One of the men hit him. Arya flinched. The footage jumped forward several hours. Now it was just Ethan alone, slumped in the chair. Then someone entered the frame. Leon. Arya's breath caught. She watched as Leon crossed to Ethan, checked his injuries with clinical efficiency, then said something Arya couldn't hear. Ethan looked up, his expression a mix of hope and fear. Leon shook his head and left. What? Arya's voice broke. What was that? I went to verify his condition, Leon said, to make sure he could survive another 48 hours while I arranged the extraction. You could have taken him right then. No, there were 6 guards outside that room and no clean exit. Moving then would have gotten us both killed. Leon's voice was steady. So I checked on him, confirmed he wasn't in immediate danger, and left to put together a team that could actually succeed. You didn't tell him you were coming back. I couldn't risk him doing something stupid out of hope. Leon met her eyes. I made the hard choice, Arya. The one that kept everyone alive. Arya stared at the frozen image on the screen, Leon's face in profile, expression unreadable. She thought about all the times he'd made decisions without consulting her, all the ways he'd controlled the situation to get the outcome he wanted. She thought about the wire she'd worn, the lies she'd told, the role she'd played. And she thought about the fact that she was alive, that Ethan was alive, that Marcus hadn't killed her that first night. Play the rest, she said quietly. David scrolled through the remaining files. Most were more surveillance footage, financial records that proved Volkov's money laundering operation. But the last file was different. A video labeled Insurance. David clicked it. The video showed Volkov in his office, sitting across from a man Arya didn't recognize. They were talking, relaxed, until Volkov pulled out a gun and shot the man 3 times in the chest. The man slumped in his chair. Volkov made a phone call, and 2 people entered to remove the body. The timestamp matched the date of the federal witness's murder. Jesus, Marcus breathed. That's what you went in there for, Leon said to Arya. That footage, Volkov's personal insurance policy in case he ever needed leverage against the people who work for him. He keeps it in the safe in his office. And he just handed it to you. David said slowly, looking at Arya. Why? Arya thought about Volkov's smile, the way he'd framed everything as a gift. Because he thinks I'll watch this and decide you're worse than him, that I'll choose the devil I don't know over the one I do. And what are you going to choose? Leon asked quietly. Arya looked at him, this complicated, dangerous man who'd saved her and used her and seen her when everyone else looked away. She thought about the person she'd been 3 weeks ago, hiding bruises and making herself small. She thought about the person she was now, standing in a penthouse overlooking the city, holding evidence that could destroy a criminal empire. I'm going to choose myself, she said. Leon's expression shifted, surprise maybe, or respect. What does that mean? It means I'm done being a piece on someone else's board. Yours or Volkov's or anyone's. Arya pulled the wire from under her sweater and set it on the table. I'll testify. I'll give David everything he needs to put Volkov away. But after that, I'm out. Arya, I'm not asking permission. She held Leon's gaze. You said I had potential, that I could be valuable. You were right. But not as your asset, as my own person. The silence in the room was deafening. Then David cleared his throat. We have enough to move on Volkov tonight. The footage plus Arya's testimony gives us everything we need. He looked at Leon. Unless you object? Leon didn't take his eyes off Arya. No objection. Good. I'll coordinate with the FBI. David started packing up the laptop. Arya, you'll need to be in protective custody until the trial. She'll stay here, Leon said. That's not... She stays here. Leon's tone left no room for argument. I'll provide security. You focus on building your case. David looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Leon's expression stopped him. He nodded and left with Marcus, taking the USB drive with them. Arya and Leon stood alone in the penthouse, the city lights glittering beyond the windows. You could have died tonight, Leon said finally. I know. And you did it anyway. Yes. Why? Arya thought about the question. Because I needed to know if I could. I've spent my whole life being afraid. Of my father, of Marcus, of Volkov, of you. I needed to know what it felt like to be brave. That wasn't bravery. That was calculated risk. But Leon's expression softened. Though I suppose there's not much difference. You would know. He smiled slightly. Yes, I would. He crossed the room to the bar, poured 2 glasses of scotch, and handed one to Arya. To calculated risks. To surviving them, Arya amended. They drank. The scotch burned going down, but in a good way. What happens now? Arya asked. Now we wait for David to do his job. The FBI will arrest Volkov, probably within the next 12 hours. You'll give your testimony. He'll go to prison. Leon swirled the scotch in his glass. And then you'll have a choice to make. What choice? Whether you walk away or stay. Leon looked at her directly. I meant what I said about you having potential. I have businesses that need intelligent, observant people I can trust. You could have a place in that world if you wanted it, a real place, not just as someone I protect. What kind of place? That depends on what you want. Security consultant, logistics coordinator, operations manager. Leon set down his glass. Or something else entirely. I'm flexible. Arya studied his face, looking for the manipulation, the angle. But all she saw was honesty. I'll think about it, she said. Fair enough. They stood in comfortable silence, drinking scotch and watching the city. Arya felt the tension of the night finally start to drain away, replaced by exhaustion. I should check on Ethan, she said. He's asleep. I had Marcus check on him an hour ago. Leon moved closer. You should rest too. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. I'm not tired. You're lying. Arya smiled despite herself. Maybe. Leon's hand came up to touch her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. You terrified me tonight. Good. You need to know what that feels like. I've known what it feels like since the moment you walked into that warehouse against my orders. His voice was rough. I can handle a lot of things, Arya. Watching you put yourself in danger isn't one of them. Then you're going to have a hard time if I decide to stay. I know. He leaned in, his breath warm against her skin. Stay anyway. Arya closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was different from the desperate kiss before she'd left. Slower, deeper, full of promise instead of fear. Leon's arms came around her, holding her close but not too tight, like she was something precious. When they broke apart, Arya rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. "I'm still angry at you," she said, "for using me, for manipulating the situation. I know. But I also understand why you did it." "Does that make it better or worse?" "I don't know yet." Arya pulled back to look at him. "Ask me again after Volkov's in prison." Leon nodded. "Deal." The FBI arrested Alexei Volkov at 6 the next morning. Arya watched the news coverage from the penthouse, coffee in hand, as reporters swarmed the courthouse. Volkov was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his expression furious. He saw the cameras and his face twisted into something ugly. "Worth it," Arya said quietly. Leon stood beside her, his arm in a fresh sling. He'd re-injured it somehow, though he wouldn't say how. David says they found additional evidence in Volkov's office. Financial records, communications with other criminal organizations. This is going to take down more than just him. Good. Over the next 3 months, Arya's life became a strange mix of normal and surreal. She gave her testimony, sitting in a witness box and recounting every dinner, every conversation, every moment Volkov had tried to manipulate her. The defense attorney tried to paint her as a liar, a woman scorned, a pawn in Leon's schemes. But the evidence was too strong. The jury deliberated for 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. Volkov got life without parole. Arya was there when the sentence was read. She watched him being led away and felt nothing, no satisfaction, no relief, just a kind of hollow finality. It was over. Marcus had dealt with Marcus Wallace 3 weeks into the trial. Arya never asked what dealt with meant, and Marcus never volunteered the information. All she knew was that one day she got a call from an unknown number, and when she answered, Marcus's voice came through tight with fear. "I'm sorry for everything. I won't bother you again." The line went dead. Arya never heard from him after that. Ethan recovered slowly, both physically and mentally. He spent 2 months in a rehabilitation facility that Leon paid for, a place that treated addiction and trauma with actual care instead of judgment. When he came out, he looked different, clearer, older. "I'm sorry," he told Arya during one of their visits, "for dragging you into my mess, for being weak when you needed me to be strong." "You weren't weak. You were drowning." Arya squeezed his hand. "We both were. The difference is, we got out." Ethan was living in an apartment Leon owned now, working at a community center teaching GED classes. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was honest, clean. He called Arya every Sunday, and they were learning to be siblings again instead of just survivors tied together by trauma. And Arya made her choice. She didn't walk away. Instead, she took Leon up on his offer, a position managing operations for one of his legitimate import businesses. She discovered she was good at it, good at reading people and situations, good at solving problems that required both intelligence and intuition. Leon gave her real responsibility, real authority, and when she made mistakes, he let her fix them instead of swooping in to save her. It wasn't perfect. They argued constantly about strategy, about risk, about the line between protection and control. But they also learned to trust each other in ways that went beyond survival. Leon stopped making decisions for her. Arya stopped expecting him to save her. And somewhere in that balance, they found something neither of them had been looking for. 6 months after Volkov's conviction, Arya stood in Leon's study, reviewing shipping manifests. She'd just discovered a discrepancy in one of their supplier contracts that could have cost the company millions. Leon sat behind his desk, watching her work through the problem, his expression unreadable. "You're enjoying this," he said finally. Arya looked up. "What?" "This. The work. The challenge." He leaned back in his chair. "You like having power." "Is that a bad thing?" "No, it's honest." Leon stood and crossed to where she stood by the window. "You've changed, Arya. The woman I met at that restaurant would never have walked into Volkov's office wearing a wire. She would have run. That woman was barely surviving. This one is living." Arya set down the papers. "You showed me the difference. I didn't do anything except give you an opportunity. You're the one who took it." Leon's hand came up to touch her face. "I'm proud of you." The words settled in her chest like warmth. Arya leaned into his touch, letting herself have this moment of vulnerability. "What happens now?" she asked. "Whatever we want." Leon pulled her closer. "We build something, together. Not you working for me or me protecting you, actually together." "That sounds complicated." "Everything worth having is." Arya kissed him, and it felt different from all the kisses before, less desperate, more certain. This wasn't about fear or survival or need. This was about choice. When they broke apart, Leon rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "I already did. I mean permanently. Move in here. Make this your home, not just a safe house." Arya pulled back to look at him. "Why?" "Because I love you." The confession was simple, direct. "And I think you love me too, even though I'm difficult and dangerous and not what you planned for your life." He was right. She did love him, this complicated man who'd saved her and challenged her and refused to let her settle for survival when she could have power. It wasn't the love she'd imagined when she was younger, soft and safe and uncomplicated. This love had edges. It required honesty and strength and the willingness to fight for what they were building. But it was real. "Yes," Arya said. "I'll stay." Leon smiled, and it was the first truly unguarded expression she'd ever seen on his face. He kissed her again, and Arya kissed him back, tasting possibility and promise and the future they'd build together. The girl who'd hidden bruises in a restaurant bathroom was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned that power wasn't something you were given. It was something you took. That strength wasn't about never being afraid, but about being afraid and moving forward anyway. That sometimes the people who hurt you and the people who save you are different faces of the same lesson. Arya had learned to save herself. And in doing so, she'd discovered something rarer than safety or protection or even love. She'd discovered who she was when she stopped hiding. 2 years later, Arya stood in front of a full-length mirror adjusting the collar of her suit. The penthouse had changed since she'd officially moved in, softer now, with touches of her personality mixed with Leon's stark aesthetic. Photos on the walls, books on the shelves, evidence that two people lived here instead of one. Elena appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Varelli is waiting. Tell him I'll be down in 5 minutes. He said to tell you that you look beautiful and to stop fussing." Arya smiled. Even when he wasn't in the room, Leon knew her too well. She took one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back was confident, poised, successful. She ran 3 of Leon's operations now, oversaw a staff of 40, and had just closed a deal that would expand their business into new territories. She was good at what she did, more than good, and she'd earned every bit of it. Downstairs, Leon waited by the door, dressed in a dark suit that made him look dangerous and elegant in equal measure. His eyes traveled over her appreciatively. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." They had a meeting with potential investors, then dinner with Ethan and his new girlfriend, then a quiet evening at home. A normal day in a life that was anything but normal. As they left the penthouse, Arya thought about the night she'd called Leon's number, desperate and scared and out of options. She thought about every choice she'd made since then, the good ones and the bad ones, the brave moments and the terrified ones. She wouldn't change any of it, because the truth she'd learned was this: being broken wasn't the same as being weak. Needing help wasn't the same as being helpless. And sometimes the people who saw you at your worst were the only ones who could help you become your best. Leon took her hand as they walked to the elevator, his grip warm and steady. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far we've come." "We have a long way to go yet." "I know." Arya squeezed his hand. "I'm looking forward to it." The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside together. The doors closed and they descended into the city, into their life, into the future they'd fought for and earned and chosen. And Arya knew, with absolute certainty, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Not because someone had saved her, but because she'd learned to save herself.